Psalm 25:14 says that the Lord reveals his hidden things to those who fear him. That verse does not sound like thunder. It is soft, like a breath on the back of your neck, just enough to make you pause on the road you thought you knew. And in the same way, your recent days no longer move at the old pace. There is a silence you never asked for, a slowing down you did not create. On the outside, it looks like you have been separated from everything, separated from people, separated from noise, separated from the conversations that once consumed your time. But when you sit still, you know this is not emptiness. This is a silence with memory, a space shaped by the hand of heaven that makes you look deep into yourself as if looking into still water. You did not come here because you wanted another talk, another motivation. You came because your soul was pulled here. Some things in life cannot be explained by logic. They can only be recognized by the slight trembling in your chest, like someone calling your name without sound. Through the years, you have lived like someone standing in a battle no one else can see. At night, when you sleep, your mind still echoes with the noise of invisible attacks. There were moments when you thought you would break. There were moments when you asked where God was as you walked through all this. Yet the next morning, even with heavy eyes and a torn heart, you rose again, not because you are strong, but because a hand beneath your back lifted you before you hit the ground. You have endured attacks that others only saw in fragments while you lived through the whole storm. Some people came into your life like a poisonous wind, bringing doubt, criticism, and invisible wounds to your spirit. Some relationships you had to release even when your heart wanted to hold on, not because they were bad, but because they no longer belong to the chapter you are stepping into. You sensed this even when no one explained it. And in those fractures, you began to see that the separation of God is never punishment. It is a sacred surgery that removes what would pull you into darkness if carried too long. If you look back, you will see you were always different. When others saw the surface, you saw what lay beneath. When others heard noise, you heard the quiet beneath it. When others believed the first things people said, you felt the lack of truth in every gesture, every word. This is not distrust. This is spiritual sensitivity planted in you long ago. And this difference made you a mirror that some souls do not want to face. They said you were strange, hard to understand, too sensitive. They did not know you were responding to the things they tried to hide. The wounds you carry are not accidents. They are the fingerprints of the one reshaping your life. Every tear, every tightness in your heart, every moment you were so drained you could only sit and breathe. All of it is part of a preparation no one taught you. You thought you were left behind, but in truth, you were pulled away from the crowd so God could work in you without interruption and without noise, drowning it out. Many people want to be lifted up, but few want to be set apart. You do not know how brave you have been by not running away. There are days when you feel shut out from the world. You no longer want to talk, to explain, or to prove anything. Every voice becomes a weight. Yet in that quiet, something begins to move inside you. It is like an old room locked for years that someone now opens so light can enter. You begin to see the dark corners in your heart, the old fears, the things you tried to bury, not to hurt you, but to show you that you have carried them too long. God does not lead you into silence to punish you. He leads you into silence to transform you in a place no one else can reach. The things you relied on fall away so you can lean only on Him. The people who once held you step out of your life so you can see who the true source is, the one who never leaves. This silence is not an ending. It is the belly of the great fish, where Jonah thought he was buried but was being prepared to return to his mission. If you feel placed in an invisible space, where even when you try, no one sees, no one hears, no one understands, then right there, God is writing things He does not want anyone to read before they are complete. He holds you in silence not to hide you from the light, but so the light within you becomes strong enough not to be extinguished when you stand before the wind. And what you are going through is not stagnation, it is placement. You are not being left behind. You are standing where God is preparing to lift you. You are not being pushed back. You are being positioned for something new. This silence has purpose. It is the deep soil where roots must grow strong before branches can reach outward. As this story unfolds, you will see something clearly. No challenge you faced will go unused. No tear you shed will fail to become water for what God is about to make bloom in you. You have stepped into the first part of the journey, where silence is no longer an enemy, but a teacher. Where loneliness is no longer a sentence, but preparation. Where God does not speak much, yet works so deeply that no words could ever explain. There are moments when you stand before walls you once believed were sacred. You step into spaces called holy, yet your heart feels heavy as if weighed down by stone. You cannot understand why the fiery sermons no longer touch you. You cannot explain why the leaders who claim spiritual authority make you more tired than lifted. Then one day you realize what your soul had known all along, that some houses are built in the name of God, but His breath is not in them. These structures are stacked by tradition, by power, by human ego, not by love or heavenly fire. You once thought maybe your faith was weak. Maybe you were strange. Maybe you did not belong to the community. But God began to peel back every layer so you could see what physical eyes could never see. You started to feel the emptiness inside rituals that had become too familiar. The songs were loud, but the spirit in the room was small. The sermons were polished, but the heart of the speaker was untouched. You felt something was wrong, even when everyone else kept smiling, clapping, and nodding as if everything was right. That feeling was not rebellion. It was the final limit of your soul. Before breaking under a mold it was never created to fit. You saw people on the stage who wanted to be seen more than they wanted to serve. You saw prayers used as performances rather than conversations with the one they called by name. You saw fake embraces, fake encouragement, and conversations where eyes never truly met yours. All of it made your soul feel like someone walking through a desert, while others insisted it was a garden. You tried to believe them, but your throat stayed dry. And the more you tried, the more you understood that God was pulling you out of that barrenness. Sometimes what hurts most is not malice, but the pretense of holiness. You have seen people speak of love while using power to push others down. They spoke of humility while building a throne from the praise of men. They spoke of freedom while tying invisible cords around those who did not submit. And when your soul felt it could no longer breathe, you thought you were retreating. But in truth, that was when God opened the back door and whispered that you do not belong here. You did not leave because you were disappointed. You left because the truth inside you could no longer live in a covered darkness. Places that once felt like shelter became places where your soul was squeezed tight. And God had known this long before. He let you see every crack, every false layer, not so you would judge, but so you would awaken. He wanted you to know that you were not created to live in the house of man, but under His direct leading. Maybe you prayed asking God to help you fit in, asking to be compliant enough to stay. But the truth is, you cannot blend with what God is calling you out of. The difference inside you is not a flaw. It is the sign of calling. Those religious walls cannot contain what He is placing in you. You cannot shrink yourself to fit into a box He never designed for you. You may have been criticized for leaving. They said you lacked commitment. They said you would not submit. They said you were rebellious. But they did not understand that God did not call you to kneel under human authority. He called you to follow His voice, even when that voice leads you into a desert, away from places labeled safe. He knew leaving would bring pain, loss, and questions with no quick answers. But He needed you and to stand alone so your soul could hear Him more clearly than the crowd. You once wondered why you could see through what others missed, why you sensed falsehood even when it was wrapped in beautiful words, why you could not close your eyes and nod along just to keep peace. The answer is not that you are sharper or more suspicious. It is because God placed in you a spiritual sight that cannot be deceived. These eyes do not follow the glow of a stage. They search for the true light that comes from Him. When the walls of religion collapsed in your mind, it was not the end. It was the dawn of something wider and truer. God used that collapse to pull you out of places that once blurred His true image. He wanted you to see that He was never locked inside rituals or structures. He is the breath stirring in silence, the flame rising in the wounded heart, the hand lifting you when no one else sees you fall. You are not lost. You are liberated. You are not rejected. You are chosen to see what others do not see. And once you have seen, you cannot return. You cannot pretend. You cannot shrink your soul to fit into worn-out spaces. God did not bring you to this threshold to frighten you. He brought you here so you would know this journey no longer belongs to walls. It belongs to Him, and He is preparing your spirit to step into a deeper part of the path, where truth is no longer diluted, where love is no longer conditioned, where you will learn to stand tall without any human structure holding you up. Your journey begins to take shape from here. You do not know why, but a verse rises in your heart as clearly as someone whispering behind your ear. Take delight in the Lord, and He will give you the desires of your heart. Psalm 37:4. This verse does not come as a sweet promise. It comes like a gentle cut that severs the last strings tying you to a place that no longer belongs to you. You have stepped out of the old walls, yet your soul still carries a little dust, a few shadows, a few words hanging like invisible hooks pulling you backward. And in that in-between moment, God begins His deepest work, separating you from everything others have ever said about you, so He can bring you back to what He has spoken about you from the beginning. You were labeled with all kinds of names: rebellious, difficult, disobedient, not humble in the way they wanted. But if you are honest, you know those labels say nothing about you. They only reveal the fear of people who cannot bear the freedom you carry in your spirit. You were not pushed out of their circle. You were released. And this release did not come like lightning. It came through small disappointments, quiet letdowns that seemed meaningless, conversations that made you wonder why you felt lost among people who spoke about God every week. The answer is not in them. It is in you. You have outgrown the rooms you once tried to fit into. You have walked farther than the old molds could hold. And when the soul grows, it cannot pretend to shrink for the sake of harmony. God knows this. So He allowed the criticism to come, the doors to close, so you would have no place to lean except Him, not to hurt you, but to make you choose the path He opens, not the one others laid out. You have been misunderstood so many times that you became familiar with people seeing the version they created in their minds instead of the real person growing in His light. You were treated as a troublemaker just because you asked questions. You were seen as someone breaking order simply because you dared to speak what your heart heard from God. But the most beautiful thing is this: every time they tried to silence the voice within you, God made it louder, not with sound, but with inner certainty. He is refining you, and refinement is never soft. It feels like standing in fire without knowing when it will end. Some nights you lie down feeling your soul being pulled in two directions. One wanting to go back to what is familiar simply because it feels safe. The other pulling you towards something unknown, yet strangely bright. This is the most important moment for a chosen person, the moment you realize you cannot go back, yet you cannot see the road ahead. And right in that dark space, God is there. He is not only there to comfort, He is there to testify that this separation is the sign of calling. What you thought was failure is actually shaping. What you thought was loss is actually freedom. Every accusation thrown at you fell before touching your soul, because He lifted you above the place where those words could reach. He does not want you to live by the view of people. He wants you to live by His view, the view that sees even what you have not yet become. You have learned this through many long nights. Not everyone who speaks of God knows how to love like God. Not everyone who carries a spiritual title understands their own spiritual journey. Not everyone who calls you brother or sister in God truly wants to see you grow. And when you began to see this clearly, your mind grew tired, your heart ached, but your soul grew lighter, because truth, even when painful, always brings freedom. Look at yourself. How many times have you stayed silent not because you were wrong, but because you no longer wished to argue with someone who could not hear? How many times did you walk away not because your love was gone, but because your soul knew it could not keep dying in that place? How many times have you broken down before God saying, "If this is what you want me to do, please help me endure"? And He did. Not by pulling you out of the fire, but by standing inside the fire with you. In that place, you became sharper, stronger, holier, and quiet in a way the world cannot touch. You did not see this at first, but now, looking back, you know you are no longer the same. And if you are reading this far, pause for a moment and ask yourself, how many things in your life did you mistake as attacks, when they were actually signs of being chosen? How many things felt like rejection but were really confirmation that you are stepping out of the shadow of people and into the light of God? If something in this touches you, leave a word in the comments, not to increase numbers, but as a sign that your soul is waking up. And if this journey makes you want to go deeper, press subscribe so you will not miss what God still wants to say to you through this story. No pressure, only an invitation into a long journey you were never meant to walk alone. What God is doing in you is not fully revealed yet. This is only the stage where He removes the old layers to prepare for something no one can predict. And even if you cannot see it all, I can say this with gentle certainty. You are standing exactly where God wants you. Even if that place feels lonely, quiet, or confusing, it is opening the next chapter of your life. A chapter where you will walk not under the gaze of others, but under the growing light within you. There are nights when you lie still and your heart feels like it is being taken apart piece by piece. You do not cry loudly, yet your breath feels as heavy as carrying a collapsed house on your chest. No one knows, no one sees, but you feel it clearly. Something inside you is dying. The strange thing is, you do not know whether to fight it or let it die completely, because that part was once what you leaned on, once what you believed would walk with you for life. But now, it no longer holds its old shape. It is like a wall that a small earthquake can shake, dropping one brick a day, and no one bothers to pick it up. You think something is being taken from you, but in truth, you are being led through a spiritual surgery without anesthesia. Every crack, every break, every loss seems to come not all at once, but in waves, like tides crashing against the shore without stopping. Each wave washes away something you thought you needed, and the next morning you wake lighter yet strangely unfamiliar with yourself. Others only see your silence, but they do not see the battle within you. The battle between what is familiar and what God is making new. You do not know how many times you have asked, God, Why is everything falling apart at once? But God does not answer with words. He answers by sitting beside you in silence. In those darkest moments, you cannot hear him, but you feel something else. He does not leave. He is there like a faint warmth on your shoulder, like a small glow at the edge of your mind that you cannot extinguish no matter how hard you try. It is a presence without noise, yet enough to keep you from falling into the abyss you thought you were about to sink into. Psalm 34:18 says, "The Lord is close to the brokenhearted." This verse is not meant to hang on a wall, but to be lived, and you have lived inside that verse more than you want to admit. In the moments when you broke and thought your strength was gone, he did not rush to lift you. He knelt beside you, quietly placing his hand on the pieces and letting you breathe. This is not the silence of abandonment. It is the silence of a surgeon stitching your heart without adding pain with words. People think you are growing weaker. The truth is the opposite. You are losing what you no longer need to become who God is calling you to be. Sometimes for the soul to stand tall, a few dreams must bow and die. For the heart to grow wide, a few expectations must break. You are not failing. You are being rebuilt. And rebuilding always begins with the collapse of the old structure. Remember the seasons when you tried to hold on to everything, holding on to people, places, work, even the stability you knew was false. But the more you held, the more exhausted you became. Then one day, God spoke not with words, but by letting things slip from your hands one by one. Not because he wanted you empty, but because hands that are full cannot receive more. And you are being prepared to enter a season of receiving. But before receiving, you must learn to release, not release out of despair, but release out of trust that what he removes has reached its expiration. You may feel like you are standing in an old room where every piece of furniture has been taken away. Everything that once made you feel safe is gone. But pay attention. An empty room is not a sign of abandonment. It is a sign of preparation. Only an empty room has space for what is coming. And what God is about to place in your room is not ordinary. It is purpose. It is your true identity. It is strength you never believed belonged to you. It is the voice you were once forced to silence. It is the inner light rising again after years of being covered. There are days when you feel like a shattered mirror. You see your reflection distorted and scattered. You barely recognize yourself. But God does not fix you with tape. He does not put you back the way you were. He takes each broken piece and shapes it until light can pass through. You do not become the old unbroken mirror again. You become stained glass, each piece placed with intention, and the light that shines through it is far more beautiful than the mirror that once reflected only a temporary face. You are being recreated, not according to the old designs placed on you by others, but according to the original design God wrote before you could speak. That is why he lets the things that are not yours fall apart, not to make you hurt, but so you will not carry stones that will slow you down on the path he is leading you into. No one likes being rebuilt, because to be rebuilt, you must allow yourself to be taken apart. But you are exactly where God wants you, in a place with no more clinging, no more noise, where he can lay his hand on your soul without interruption. When you look back later, you will know this was the most beautiful season, even though you once called it brutal. Because here, for the first time, you are no longer living by instinct to protect yourself. You are living by guidance. God is laying a foundation, and he does not lay foundations for temporary shelters. He lays foundations for a life that will stand in the wind without bending. A life about to carry meaning you never imagined. Some mornings you wake without knowing why you feel a little lighter. And by evening, the weight returns like someone has placed a stone in the center of your chest. On days like these, you no longer have the strength to join every conversation. every circle, every noise you once believed you had to be part of. You only want silence. You want to sit alone. You want to close your eyes and let your heart find its own rhythm. Sometimes you feel as if you have disappeared from the world, and the world hardly notices. At first, this terrifies you, but slowly, you realize this disappearance is not punishment, it is invitation. You are stepping into a season of stillness understood only by those whom God has touched. A season that looks quiet on the outside, but inside feels like a river changing direction. It is not loud, yet it is strong. It is not rushed, yet it is sharp. In this season, you are not asked to run, to prove, to shine, to explain. God does not place any demand on you except one thing. Sit down, breathe, let Him do His part. The world looks at this stillness and calls it by accusing names: stagnation, laziness, lack of ambition, loss of direction. But the world cannot see what is happening beneath the soil. They see the tree standing still, but they do not see the roots going deeper. They see you speaking less, but they do not see your mind being cleared of voices that do not belong to you. They see you stepping back, but they do not see God pulling you away from the edge of a cliff and placing you on ground where He can work without interruption. In this quiet season, you begin to notice things you once ignored because life was too loud. You notice your reactions to every person, every word, every energy. You see clearly which conversations leave you dry instead of nourished. You see which relationships require you to shrink in order to survive in them. And strangely, you no longer want to resist or fix anything. You simply let these things fall from your life like leaves that have reached the end of their season. You begin choosing peace over busyness, truth over agreement, the inner voice over outside approval. And each choice makes your soul lighter, clearer, and closer to God. But not every day is gentle. Some days the silence lasts so long that you feel yourself sinking. Questions rise with no answers. God, have you forgotten me? Why are you not speaking? What should I do next? Did I do something wrong? Many times you think this silence is a sign of absence, but in truth, it is the strongest sign of His presence, because He is not speaking with words. He is speaking with space. That space forces you to listen with spiritual ears, not physical ones. It forces you to feel with the quietness in your chest that once was buried under noise. It forces you to find God not through others, but through your own breath. In that place you understand why He brought you into this season, to silence the voices that once directed your steps, and to reopen the frequency that only He speaks on. In this season, you begin to see the old fatigue that had been there for years, but you never faced. The fears you hid beneath a smile, the wounds you covered with busyness, the memories you thought you forgot, but only pushed into dark corners. When silence stretches long, all of these rise, not to hurt you more, but so you can finally see them under the light of God. A light that does not condemn, only heals. You discover something all mature souls know. God works deepest in the quietest moments. He fixes roots, not leaves. He heals the part no one sees, not the part people praise. He changes the foundation before He changes the appearance. And that is why the silent season is always the most important part of any journey of calling. You may not see the full picture yet, but day by day you are growing stronger, not in the loud way of the world, but in the secret way of heaven. You no longer react as quickly as before. Hurtful words no longer pierce the way they used to. Old fears no longer lead you the way they once did. You are being protected. You are being prepared. You are being set apart so God can shape your soul into a weapon He will use in the next season. And here is what you need to understand. This silence will not last forever. It will last just long enough to build foundation. When the foundation is ready, God will pull you out of this hidden place in a way no one expects. And when that time comes, you will stand differently, see differently, live differently. Not because you tried to change, but because the silence has completed its work. In the end, you will look back at this season and smile, because you will understand this is where God teaches you how to breathe again, how to listen again, how to trust again, how to walk without trembling, how to stand alone without feeling alone, how to look at the future without fear, and most of all, how to let God lead without resisting Him. You are in the belly of stillness, but soon, from this very place, God will call you out. There is a morning when you wake up and realize the silence inside you is no longer something to fear. It becomes a clean space, like the ground after a night of rain, untouched by any footsteps. You are no longer restless the way you once were, no longer chasing everything just to prove you are still worth being seen. You begin to accept that there are seasons when God hides you, not so you will disappear, but so you will be prepared for the moment He brings you into the light in a way no one can stop. And you feel that moment drawing near, not through facts, but through the rhythm of your soul. Its tone shifts, its beat shifts, its direction shifts. The silence does not fade, it transforms into peace. You no longer worry when doors stay closed. You no longer panic when people do not see you. You begin to understand that what belongs to you does not need to be chased. What God has wrapped into your destiny cannot be stolen. Slowly, you feel a quiet movement within, like the ground beneath your feet shifting by a millimeter to place you exactly where you are meant to be. No one else hears it, but you do. No one understands, but you do. In those days, you can look back on the past years without trembling. You see every trial, every misunderstanding, every breaking point, every moment you thought your life was over. You do not deny they hurt, but you begin to see something you were once too weary to notice. Not a single pain was wasted. Every crack in you was used by God as a place for light to pass through. Every time you were pushed down strengthened the foundation you now stand on. You were not placed on a launching pad of praise. You were placed on a launching pad built from wounds that healed. Psalm 91:4 says, He covers you with His feathers, and His faithfulness is your shield. This becomes real to you in a new way, not as a comforting phrase people say to feel better, but as something you lived through. You look back at seasons when you should have broken completely, yet somehow you rose again, not by willpower, but by a quiet protection you only recognized once you had walked past it. You begin to understand you never walked alone. Even when you could not hear Him, He was shielding you from things you never knew were sent to destroy you. Then something else happens, something so subtle only those who have walked through darkness can notice. The things that once kept you awake at night become small. The words people said about you no longer echo the way they used to. The fears you thought would stay forever begin to dissolve like ash in the wind, not because you are numb, but because God is shifting your soul back to its true center. Your gaze no longer depends on the approval of others. It lifts to a higher place, a place that has called to you for a long time, but you were never quiet enough to hear. And then, as if the sky tilts by a single degree, you begin to see signs, unexpected conversations, small doors cracking open. People you never thought you would meet again appear in ways so natural that without awareness, you would call it coincidence. But deep inside, you know this is not coincidence. This is God's orchestra playing its first notes. He is pulling you from hiddenness into the position you were destined for, but never yet saw with earthly eyes. The work you have done in silence, the things you thought no one noticed, suddenly carry meaning. Every line you wrote in the dark, every quiet prayer, every good deed no one witnessed, every moment you chose integrity when no one required it. All of these were seeds rooting beneath the surface while you thought you were stagnant. Now they begin to shift. You do not see the tree grow in a day, but you feel the soil swelling. This is when you begin to grasp one of the strongest truths in the life of someone called, you do not need to chase opportunity. Opportunity will find you, not because you are lucky, but because you are positioned. The opportunities meant for you are not something you must fight for. They are things God wrote into your story before your first breath. And now each part of that story is unfolding at the time He knows is right. You no longer need to rush. You no longer need to push open doors not meant for you. You no longer need to step out when God is still telling you to stay. You only need to stand in the timing He has set, because the next season is drawing near, and it will not resemble any season you have known, not because it is easier, but because you will enter it with a soul made strong in silence, a soul able to stand against any wind. You are standing at the edge of a lifting that no human hand can manufacture, and when it happens, no one, not even you, will be able to deny that it came from God. There are days when you feel as if you are being lifted off the ground little by little. But just when you begin to see a wider sky, the voices of the ones you once knew rise behind you like arrows. Not everyone is glad to see you change. Not everyone is at peace when your soul escapes the box they were used to place you in. And so the criticism begins, not from strangers, but from those who once said they loved you in God. That kind of pain goes deeper than any physical wound. They ask you why you are living differently, why you no longer submit to old ways, why you dare to step out of the mold everyone else quietly follows. They try to pull you back with words that sound like concern, but hide fear of losing control. You do not blame them, but you cannot return, because you are no longer the person they once knew. God has taken you out of the lower levels and brought you into a wider space where truth is spoken plainly and where you no longer have to pretend. What is strange is that these criticisms no longer pierce you the way they once did. They touch you, but they do not topple you. They make you pause for a moment, but they do not make you turn back. You stand firm in a way you cannot explain, as if beneath your feet there is a layer of stone you cannot see but can feel with every step. That is when you realize this strength is not from you. It comes from the foundation God built in silence during the season you just came through. And in that very moment, a sacred sign begins to appear in Life 444. The 3 4s do not come to look pretty or to make you superstitious. They come as a seal from heaven for someone stepping into a season of strengthening. This number carries the meaning of firm foundation and divine protection, a sign that what God is building in you cannot be undone by human words. It is a reminder that He is making you a pillar, not a leaf blown by the wind. 444 is not a promise of ease. It is a reminder that you are standing on God's ground, not the ground of public opinion. And when a foundation is built by His hands, no voice can shake you. If you have seen this number appear in strange moments, when you hesitated, when you were tired, when you asked for direction, that is not coincidence. It is God speaking to those whose spiritual ears are quiet enough to hear. Do not fear. Your foundation is being built with stone, not sand. If 444 touches something in you, in a way you cannot explain, you may share it in the comments, not to create effect, but to acknowledge that your soul is stepping into new territory. Even if criticism comes from those with spiritual titles, you begin to see clearly that this resistance does not speak about you. It speaks about them. It shows they cannot bear the new light you carry. It shows your freedom makes the chains they have worn too long feel uncomfortable. It shows God is widening your life in a direction they cannot follow, because their journey ends on the land God told you to leave. But instead of anger, your heart becomes softer. You see them as people who have not yet realized they too were created for freedom, for truth, for light instead of fear of being judged. You do not fight them. You do not try to prove anything. You simply stand. Stand in the truth God placed in you. Stand in the peace He planted in you. Stand in the protection He gives without you having to ask. And something miraculous happens. The accusations lose their power. They fall to the ground before they reach your soul. You hear them like wind brushing against a wall, sound without force. You do not have to strain to be strong. This strength comes from the work God has already done in you, not from your effort. You begin to see that this battle is not between you and them. It is between what God is building in you and what is trying to hold you back. And when you stand firm, the old things fall away. They have no power over you. They have no voice anymore. They have no place in the story you are walking into. You have left the old land, and God is calling you forward, not with a shout, but with a gentle breath in your spirit. Do not fear, your foundation is firm. Then you understand. This is no longer a season of criticism. It is a season of confirmation. Resistance is not an alarm. It is a sign that your light is growing. A chosen person is not validated by praise. They are validated by trial. And you are rising through this trial in a way even you did not believe you could. God is shaping you into what He wants the world to see. There are late afternoons when you sit alone, looking out the window, feeling as if you are standing midway across a bridge, no longer belonging to the old shore, while the new shore is still blurred in mist. It is in that moment you begin to feel something you once resisted. You were not created to walk alone, not because you are weak, but because the journey God is leading you into is greater than what one person can carry. And He never intended for you to step into this new season with empty hands and a tired heart. He is preparing to send people who will stand beside you in a way you have never experienced. In past seasons, you tried to blend into circles your spirit did not belong to. You tried to hold on to relationships that deep down you knew no longer reflected the truth of who you were becoming. You grew tired enough to wonder if you were made to walk alone forever. But the deeper you walked into the silence God led you into, the more clearly you saw that this loneliness was not your destiny. It was soil being turned over to make room for the new seeds He is about to plant. God never leaves anyone in the desert to die. He keeps them there just long enough for them to recognize who is meant to walk with them in the next part of the journey. And then one day, not with a loud call, but with a warm feeling rising in your chest, you understand that God is gathering souls like yours. People who have walked through fire, been misunderstood, been separated from the crowd, yet kept their inner flame alive. They do not come to control you. They do not come to shape you into their image. They do not come with judgment or with advice wrapped in fear. They come as those who know the price of tears, the price of silence, the price of standing alone before standing in the right place. Psalm 133:1 says, "How good and pleasant it is when brothers dwell together in unity." You heard that verse many times, but only now do you understand its true meaning. This unity is not simply standing under the same religious roof. It is not sharing rituals or tradition. It is the meeting of souls God has taught in ways no one else can understand. These people do not demand that you shrink. They do not silence you when what God placed in you wants to speak. They do not lower you in order to lift themselves. They simply stand beside you, and by their presence, you feel lighter. You begin to recognize them through the smallest signs. Conversations that do not drain you, eyes that do not judge you, energy that does not pull you down, and most of all, authenticity that needs no decoration. They do not need to appear strong because they are not here to impress. They do not need to pretend to be holy because they have lived through enough darkness to know God works most powerfully in weakness. With them, You do not need to cover yourself with defense. You simply breathe, and that breath itself becomes a prayer. God is not connecting you with these people by accident. They are pieces of the same picture He is assembling. Each carries a part of the fire, a part of the truth, a part of the experience the whole group needs to fulfill the shared mission. Alone, each one is a flickering candle. Together, they become a line of light stretching across the darkness of the world. And God knows you need them to enter the next chapter of your life, just as they need you to complete the story written for them. In the first conversations with them, you may not fully understand why your heart feels so at peace, but that peace is not random. It is the mark of a divine connection, a bond not based on benefit, appearance, or expectation, but on the truth that your soul and theirs are being woven by God into the same path. You will discover that they speak little but understand much. They do not ask pointless questions like, "Why are you not like everyone else?" They simply ask, "What is God doing in you?" They do not ask you to prove your worth. They look at you and immediately see what God is shaping, just as you look at them and see the trace of the same divine hand. No explanation needed, no performance needed. Presence is enough. You will realize this in the most natural way. People who are spiritually aligned feel like home, not a physical house, but home in the deepest sense, where you do not have to tense, to act, or to defend yourself, where you are not afraid of being abandoned for telling the truth, where you are not afraid of labels for being too deep, too sensitive, too real. Those who belong to your inner circle do not run from truth. They walk into truth with you, and you understand this is not community. This is a God-built alliance. With them, you no longer feel the need to live guarded. You find yourself opening, softening, widening. Your heart rests like someone stepping into shade after a long day under burning sun. You know you are finally beginning to see what God has been leading you toward. He is not only building you, He is building a team. People who together will create an impact none of you could create alone. You do not need to rush. You do not need to choose people by emotion. God will send the right ones. He will place them at the exact time, and when they appear, your soul will know. A new season is beginning to bloom, not only for you, but for those you are about to meet. And that meeting will open the chapter you have been prepared for through the long, quiet years. There are days when you walk through crowded streets, yet feel as if you are moving through a vast forest, the wind slipping through each breath, making you understand more clearly that you no longer belong to the old landing places. The people who once walked beside you slowly fade, not because of arguments or hurt, but because your soul is being placed on a different frequency. When God begins to redirect someone, He does not make noise. He simply makes them unable to hear the old rhythms that once held them. And just when you think you must continue in loneliness, God starts placing new people into your orbit, light as falling feathers, yet each carrying the weight of a sacred connection. You do not see them arrive with fanfare or dramatic signs. They step in through the quietest ways. A conversation that does not feel forced, a look of understanding that needs no words, a moment when you feel a lightness on your shoulders you thought you would never feel again. These people are strange yet familiar, new yet deep, calm yet strong. They do not make you tense to fit in. Instead, their presence allows you to release the armor you once wore as a survival habit. What surprises you most is that the harmony does not happen on the surface, but at the level of the soul. They understand what you have been through without needing your detailed explanation. They recognize the wound behind your smile. They see the light you tried to hide for fear of being misunderstood. They know how to listen, not to reply, but to feel what you carry inside. Such people do not appear when your life is loud. They are only sent when you are still enough to recognize who God intends to walk with you. You begin to realize these are not ordinary relationships. They are not built on social exchange, not on energy trading, not on the back and forth of benefit. They are connected by an invisible thread God is pulling from both sides. The people you meet in this season often bear the marks of similar battles. They too were misunderstood, misnamed, shut out, and walked through such long silence that they once thought they had vanished from the world. But those seasons have made them soft, deep, and true in a way your soul recognizes as if it had known them long before. You begin to see the difference between those God sends and those who come on their own. Those who come on their own bring noise, demands, and confusion. Those God sends bring calm, clarity, and peace. Those who come on their own make you feel wrong. Those God sends make you feel like you are growing. Those who come on their own try to bend your story into their understanding. Those God sends stand beside you and watch you unfold into the shape God placed in you. This is your soul tribe, not in a romantic or philosophical sense, but in a divine sense, a group of souls God leads together to accomplish what He has planned. They do not come to make you dependent. They come to remind you that you are not fighting alone. They come to lift you when you are tired, to reflect back the strength you cannot see in yourself. They come to stand with you in the light you once believed was only for people stronger than you. With them, you no longer feel the need to shrink so no one feels discomfort. You no longer hide your sensitivity because it was once called weakness. You no longer act to match expectations. Every conversation with them feels like opening a window to let fresh air sweep out the exhaustion you thought you had to carry alone. You no longer fear sharing the deepest parts of your heart because you know they will not use it against you. They do not see your pain as a burden. They see it as proof that you are still alive. The most beautiful part is realizing they are not coming because of you, but because of the purpose God is stirring in both you and them. Alone, each one is strong. Together, they become living evidence that God never designed us to fulfill great things alone. He designed us to reflect Him, and He always reveals His greatness through unity, not isolation. You will see that when you stand with these people, the old criticisms lose their power. The old wounds stop bleeding. The old fears stop leading you, because your soul is being placed in the right environment to come alive again. You are being watered by truth, held by understanding, and covered by peace. These are not luxuries, they are life. And then one day you will realize something simple yet profound. You have gone too far to return to places that could not see you. God did not bring you here just for you to find yourself again. He brought you so you would find the people who belong to the story He is about to reveal, where unity does not erase your identity, but makes it clearer, stronger, brighter. This is no longer the journey of one person. This is the journey of a chosen army, quiet, deep, gentle, and burning from within. And you are part of them, not late, not early, right on time. There is a morning when you stand before the mirror and realize your face no longer carries the fear it once did. The same eyes, the same hint of tiredness at the corners, yet behind it all is a steadiness you used to see only in people who had walked much farther than you. You no longer ask, "Why did God let me go through all of that?" Instead, the question is replaced by a gentle understanding. I see. It is because what He is about to do in me requires a foundation like this. And the strange thing is, you no longer need anyone to confirm it. You feel it in the way you breathe, in the way your heart no longer trembles when you think about the future. Psalm 118-23 says, "This is the Lord's doing, and it is marvelous in our eyes." You do not read this verse as a familiar line. You read it as the clearest description of the season you are stepping into. Everything that once looked like an ending, the dreams that collapsed, the relationships that walked away, the voices that made you shrink, all of it has become part of the marvel God is preparing to reveal. He does not build on the foundation of certainty. He builds on the foundation of surrender. And you learned that lesson through tears, through silence, through the moments you rose not by strength, but because His hand lifted you when you fell. Then you begin to see movements without straining your eyes to find them. Doors open in such simple ways that you cannot help but smile at the subtlety of God. No show, no noise, only moments slipping into your life like water through stone. People who once ignored you grow curious. Those who doubted you step back. Those who left begin to turn around, not because they changed, but because the light God is kindling in you can no longer be ignored. But you know what is most beautiful? You are no longer seeking their recognition. What keeps you standing is not praise, not late apologies. What keeps you standing is the foundation God poured beneath your feet. A foundation built from nights you thought you would not survive, from prayers spoken softly but heavy as stone, from quiet yet honest choices, from every time you released what you loved because God was calling you into something deeper. And because of that, when light begins to fall on your life, it does not swallow you. Others may tremble under a spotlight. You do not, because you have become familiar with God's light. A light that does not blind you, but helps you see yourself more and more clearly. A light that does not lift you for display, but to guide others who are lost the way you once were. You do not step out to be admired. You step out to be evidence. Evidence that those who seemed forgotten were written into God's story from the beginning. The people from your past will come back. Some will want to stand near you because of the light you carry. Some will want to use it. Some will not understand why you were lifted while they were not. But you are no longer moved by old emotions. You look at them with compassion, not because you are better, but because you know everyone has their season, and theirs has not come yet. You do not let them pull you into meaningless battles. You do not let them redefine you by the version they once knew. You no longer live tangled between love and the need for approval. You love them, but you stand firm in the place God put you. Then one day you feel this as clearly as a beam of light passing through your chest. The silent season is complete, not ending with noise, but ending naturally, like a door closing softly behind you after you have walked all the way through. You look back and know that silence did not come to bury you. It came to plant you. And now you are deep enough, strong enough, true enough to stand in what God is bringing. God pulls you from the dark not to place you on a human stage, but on the radiance of purpose. Those still in the darkness you once lived will see your story and realize they are not crazy, not abandoned, not alone. They will hear your story as if hearing their own voice, but steadier, clearer, filled with hope. And you will speak not from theory, but from survival, from scars that healed, from silences that became friends, from the times you thought you died, but God breathed on you again. You are not being lifted to look beautiful. You are being lifted to lead. You are not placed to be admired. You are placed to illuminate. And your life will be proof that no one gets lost in God's hands. Not in silence, not in brokenness, not in abandonment, not even when you thought you had no value left. You are stepping into the part of the story that nothing, not accusation, not doubt, not memory, not fear, can stop. Because this part is not written by you, it is written by Him. And He does not write unfinished stories. When He says it is time, no one can hold you back. When He opens a door, no one can close it. When He lifts you, no power can drag you down. And when He uses you, no one can deny that it was done by His strength, not by human effort. This is the moment you step out, bright, clear, strong, steady. in a way only those who have been remade from the inside can understand. And everything He has done in you will begin to flow to those who need it most.
Grateful that you chose to spend these moments in the light of this story. If it touched your soul, please like, share, and subscribe, and ring the bell so the next whisper of light may find its way back to you.